What is up, guys? Before we get started in the video, I added this part after I edited the video itself. I was looking at my YouTube analytics and noticed that 99% of my viewers are not subbed. So if you guys enjoy this video, if you guys enjoy Risk of Rain 2, World of Warcraft, if you enjoy Counter-Strike, all that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff that I play. I do it on stream and whatnot, MOBAs occasionally. I used to play a lot of Heroes of the Storm, but please hit that sub button. I mean, it really helps me out a lot. I'm trying to push to 1K. We're at 829, I think, when I did this video, and it would really mean a lot to me if you took the time. Just click that subscribe button and then check out the channel. I would really appreciate it. What is up, guys? Onesie Gaming here. I have a Risk of Rain 2 video that is going to probably upset some people. It's not my intention at all, I promise. What I would say before we get into this is just my opinion based on how I've played and what I've seen. If it differs from yours, that's completely okay. This is also not me saying that I dislike a survivor. This is not me saying that a certain survivor is bad. They all have their own strengths. They all have their own weaknesses, and I hope that people can understand that and be able to basically understand that people have different opinions. Now, before we get into that part of the video, I did want to point out that I mirrored exactly as close as I could for every single class. Now, that means I put them on the same difficulty. I just did the runs on normal, tried to get to the same exact round, which I did, obliterated myself on the obelisk, and took it from there. Now, one thing I will say, RNG does play a very big role in this game. Not a massive game-ending, role, but it is a very big role. I wanted to get into, as well, how to get into later rounds with each survivor. That would probably be a later video. Now, before this gets started, I wanted to try something a little new and just kind of see your guys' opinions, and you guys let me know. So what is one mob in the game that you have yet to die from? Or, if you've died from everything in the game, what's your least favorite mob to die from? I know there's that one that you're just like, I can't believe I just died to this thing again. Put it down in the comments below. Let me know. For me, I have not died from a beetle yet as of the time of this video. And then what I hate dying to is the Wandering Vagrant. It just is so infuriating. It gets me so upset. But without further ado, let's just get straight into the list. Now, this one hurts me the most because this is my personal favorite to play. Now, the reason why he's number 6, and one thing I didn't mention when I first started up this video, was these are based entirely on solo play. Solo, I feel, is the more fun play right now, just because you get all the loot, you get to kind of just take everything you want, and you have the most potential to be super overpowered, which is extremely fun. Now, the Mercenary is number 6, not because of the run that I'm running right now. This is just a compilation of all the runs. He's by far the survivor I have played the most, and by far the survivor that I've enjoyed the most. The only survivor that comes close to the Mercenary is the Artificer in my book. With that being said, we'll get right into why I have him here at number 6. Now, he has his strengths and his weaknesses just like any other survivor in the game. The strength with the Mercenary is he has the best mobility out of any survivor in the game. His kit has the most standard mobility over anybody. His shift, being able to reset its cooldown upon hitting an enemy, and then being able to use it up to 3 times. You can even use his R ability to get out of areas if you're in a sticky situation, and his right click ability is able to be used to get out as well, stop yourself from hitting the ground hard, anything like that, staying in the air to stay out of AoEs or anything. Other strengths that he has is with certain item combinations, just like anybody else, but with certain item combinations, he can be absolutely bonkers and insane. Now, his weaknesses, very plain and obvious, is his melee. The problem is he has to be in everybody's face to do his damage, to do what he does. That leads to a lot of one-shot mechanics being turned on just automatically. The Imp Overlord, when he's slamming the ground, sometimes early in runs, that can be an absolute run stopper. If you haven't gotten your movement speed items yet, you haven't gotten your defensive items, and they just kind of show up and then just destroy you. That's one of the big weaknesses for him. Now, that being said, the Mercenary has one of the highest ceilings in the game, however. If you get the right combination of items, he can be absolutely insane, an absolute boss melter. Like I said, just like any other survivor, they do as well, but the mercenary has that added factor. If you're shifting through bosses, ultimating onto them, shifting them around, doing all kinds of crazy combinations and whatnot, he can be absolutely insane. Now, please keep in mind, this ranking system, again, is not saying that anybody is bad. I play the mercenary more than I play any other survivor in this game, and it's not even close. I just have them ranked based on how I see and how far I've been able to go with ease. I do understand that going far in this game and pushing till basically the mob stops spawning does have a lot of RNG involved with it, but again, like I mentioned earlier, there are certain things that you can do that can help increase your chances. Learning mechanics, learning how your abilities work in conjunction with those mechanics, all those things are things that can absolutely help you out, but again, I'll be getting into that into a different video. Let's go ahead and jump to number 5. The Artificer. So this one, again, pains me because, like I said earlier, this is my number 2 favorite one to play. But these two survivors have the most glaring weaknesses out of the 6 that we currently have in the pool. And those glaring weaknesses, like I mentioned in the Mercenary being melee, for the Artificer, it's her lack of a reliable escape. Now, please understand, this is not me saying that her shift is bad by any means, but the lack of a movement speed escape is so prevalent in this character. I mean, it's obviously prevalent, it's just not in the kit. But it's so groundbreaking that sometimes it can just end the run for you. The Artificer, to me, is one of those survivors that it's hard to criticize because for some reason online people get real huffy and puffy. If you talk about the Artificer, they get real upset and don't like that you're talking about it. To me, it's crazy. Like, to me, criticism is a good thing. Now, the one thing the Artificer does have going, and the reason why I put the Artificer ahead of the Mercenary, and really the only reason, is her entire kit is actually extremely useful. Using the shift correctly and just destroying things, just almost not in one shot, but if they're at that health pool, is amazing. The burst damage is insane. There is no other survivor that does the amount of burst damage that the Artificer can absolutely dish out. So early in the game, she's the best to just burn through runs. If you're the kind of runner that likes to speed through things, grab the loot real quick and move, she's the one that can really melt the boss down. The unfortunate part is she's not the one that can maneuver around the maps quickly. So you would need things like Roost. You don't want Titanic Plains. You don't want the swamp map on this character if you're going for like a speed run thing. But other than that, her damage output is just insane. There's a couple things that I talked about in my Artificer review. I don't know if I mentioned what how I think some of her skills should be changed. One thing I'd really like to see is if her R actually increased her movement speed. I think that is one thing that can go a very long way with this character without actually breaking anything. I'm not talking about a damage increase, but while you are igniting, while you're using her R ability, you have a slight movement speed increase. This way you can get in, get out of things, because late in games, especially on Monsoon difficulty, just using your ultimate can actually just end your run. And a lot of times you will not even use your ultimate ability. You won't use the R ability at all. So those are some hindrances with her, but I do believe that her downfall is still not as bad as just a straight melee class. But it was very close. And again, it pains me because these are clear cut my 2 favorite to play in the game. To me, they're the most fun to play in general. But as far as just practical running, if you just want to keep spamming runs and going further, I would not recommend the Mercenary or the Artificer for that. Now, I am very glad that we got through that. I hope we didn't lose too many people. I know those are the 2 of the most beloved characters on the Discord, and this being probably the 3rd most beloved character on this game, just for being kind of the OG and the guy at the front. And this is the Commando. Now, please keep in mind that these top 4, it was such a slim margin for these top 4 survivors, and the reason for that is primarily due to them having very similar kits. They all have a movement item, they all have some sort of like big DPS move, and sort of have a stun, not all of them. But what set this apart and what set the Commando apart from the other was just his effectiveness with his piercing attack and his stun being not super consistent. So when I talk about the margin of errors, that's what I'm talking about. Now the Commando, His strengths, he is such, besides multi, he is the best sustained DPS in the game. And what I mean by that is you just point, click, and shoot, and he will just dish out his damage no matter what. From a distance, he's got more of a range than Multi. Multi does have more of a DPS output, especially when you're using his machine gun, even with the nerf. But he's a point-and-click survivor, very simple to play, and I really, really like his kit. Now, I will admit that at the beginning of playing, after I unlocked my my other survivors, I didn't even touch the commando for a long time. And I felt really bad, because after I unlocked a bunch of the items in the game, I realized just how fun this character is. And for a side note, it doesn't really do anything for the ranking here, for pushing or going further in rounds. There is no other character that looks as good, fully kitted out, than the commando, in my opinion. Now, the commando himself, he with the point-and-click abilities and the shooting, he's able to, like I said, dish out sustainable, high DPS output. Now, his weakness, again, is his stun, and I wanted to get into that. Why I say his stun's his weakness, because it isn't always consistent. You're not always going to hit what you're aiming for. Sometimes a mob gets right in front of you and prevents you from being able to do that, and that's pretty much where that margin of error was enough to kind of push him back a spot. Again, this top 4 was extremely hard to judge and evaluate, so everything was on such fine margins, and that's what I had to basically judge this on. So what ended up killing the commando was just the inconsistencies of his stun. Now, with that only being his real inconsistency, he is such an awesome survivor to play. I always seem to have fun playing this survivor. I don't really have issues playing him, but when it comes to the top 3, he just wasn't quite there with the other 3. You know, the other 3, if you've been paying attention, being the Huntress, Multi, and of course the Engineer. Now, before you guys say anything, I know, Multi and Engineer again as 1 and 2. Oh my gosh, I completely understand and I feel your pain. But this segment is not about the Engineer and it's not about Multi. This is about the Huntress, the best AoE survivor in the game. And it's really not even close. The Artificer might come a little close with her right-clicking, but the right-click on the Huntress is just insane. Her R ability is just insane, where she rains arrows down on people for just complete wave clearing. I know I'm using kind of a MOBA terminology there, but just clearing out mobs. There's nobody that really touches her. Once she gets the right sequence of items, ukuleles and whatnot, every bounce just triggers ukuleles. All of that, you just see just numbers blow up on your screen. She's just an absolute AoE specialist. Now, the downfall of her is basically the opposite downfall of the commando, essentially. She does not have a stun. Now, if you get stun grenade and whatnot, yeah, she gets a chance on hit stun, but every survivor gets that. But she does not have a stun in her base kit, which is ultimately what put her at 3rd. Now, her mobility and her just abilities in general and the amount of AoE she puts out was able to give her the slight edge over the commando, even with her lacking a stun. And again, just because of how the commando's stun worked, I felt like she's just right there. Now, to me, the commando and the Hunters can absolutely be interchangeable, and I would definitely agree with anybody that disagrees with this and says, no, I think that the commando belongs at 3 and the Hunters at 4. But this is just where I have them, and again, guys, this is strictly just my opinion. With that being said, like I mentioned, her strengths just absolutely shredding AoE, backup magazines just being an absolute animal on this character, and just the ability to just burn through, just heaps of things with her R ability, with her right click. Again, her downfalls, her not having a stun. I loved her movement ability, though, the shift ability. You kind of look where you want to go, shift away. I love her blink. And all in all, I think it's just a solid, well-designed character. I do like that they just recently gave her a buff, not on the last patch. No, it was the last patch. The last patch, they gave her a buff, which was just a balancing patch. It wasn't even a content patch. To me, it made her just even better. I thought she was fine before that, but I absolutely love where she is at now. And then there were 2. So I had to give it to Multi here at number 2. So as you guys know, then Engineer I did put as the number 1, and I will definitely be getting into my reasons why on this, because I feel like a lot of people really put Multi as the number 1, and I really don't blame you if you do. This is another one of those that if you said, hey, I think Multi's number 1, I'm not going to argue or fight with you. I will give you my reasons why I think the engineer is better, especially in solo play, and really it comes down to the turrets. But I can absolutely see your reasoning for multi. Now, with his rebar cannon, which I'm using here, with the chance on hit mechanics and whatnot, with like the ATK missile launcher and whatnot, they do massive, massive damage because those base their proc off of the damage that you are doing. So when you hit with that and it procs, it just is absolutely insane the amount of damage that it puts out. Now, one thing with multi is he feels so slow. Now, he's not. He's the same speed as everybody else. They actually recently just nerfed him so that he is the same speed as everyone else. He just feels so slow, and I think that just might be because he has the biggest character model out of all the other ones, all the other survivors in the game. Now, Multi's major strength is he comes with the highest health pool just straight out the gate. He's a little bit of a tank. The guy is insane. Once you get the double jump, you're double jumping around, just melting bosses. He's a ton of fun. Well, let me backtrack that. He is and he isn't. In my opinion, he doesn't really fit my playstyle. Not really something that I'm really into. But going really late, early on in the game, we had to have a multi on our team for the group that I play with. It was typically my buddy Staggy, and we would just progress all the way through. And it was just almost cheat codes, it felt like, with multi. Now, he has since been nerfed, but he still feels excellent. Obviously, I still have him here at number 2. I still believe it firmly that that's where he should be. But his kit is just amazing. His ability to hold 2 different kinds of equipment, his ability to have a super high DPS attack item that just is slow, kind of like a sniper rifle, as well as having just the massive just machine gun, Gatling gun, as well as, again, the 2 equipment. That's what puts him at number 2. I mentioned the 2 equipment twice there because it is that important. The ability to have, like in this run where I have the drone squad, or the strike, whatever they call it, and then having the Prayon accumulator, it's huge with melting bosses. It just adds so much, and especially to a solo run. And he was so close to taking the top spot away from the engineer, in my opinion. So without further ado, I have the engineer at number 1, and it really comes down to just the consistency of the runs. When you have an engineer, you don't need a lot of like the reds to really push yourself through to maximize the runs, because you can, if you use your turrets effectively, you can really push far in runs with minimal effort. Now, what I mean by using your turrets effectively is kind of using them to tank damage, kiting around your turrets, doing that kind of thing, and having mobs focus on your turrets. Now, you can't just point at the turret and say attack that turret. It doesn't work that way, but there are certain ways you can position yourself and move yourself to where you can have your turrets just take a brunt of the damage. The ability to do that is so valuable, especially having 2 charges of the turrets. Now, it's ironic that I put the engineer here at number 1, that I have the artificer at 5 because she didn't have an escape. But the lack of escape on the engineer is made up for with, 1, his shield, which absorbs just pretty much all the damage in the game, and the fact that the turrets just can be your not roving tanks, but your tanks that just kind of sit there. Playing this character has an extremely linear and easy to follow strategy. It's just see the loot, take the loot, and then just become extremely powerful. There have been people that have mentioned that this might be a harder character to play, stuff like that, because they're standing still. That's just the wrong way to play this game in general. You should never really be standing still in Risk of Rain 2, especially in later rounds, because you're just going to get ganked. There's not really anything you can do. You don't want to be standing still at all. The ability to just run around, drop your turrets, let your turrets take care of things and farm for you is so beneficial. The DPS output on this guy, especially if you get the right sequence of items, is just absolutely amazing. The landmines themselves, I'm a huge proponent of those. I love those. And it's just is a complete character as far as I'm concerned with solo running. He has extremely high damage output, so anything with like chance on hit, like sticky bombs and things like that, are going to proc at a much higher damage rate, because again they base off of the damage that you put out. So his DPS output is also just exceptionally high. I think this is just the best character in the game for solo and even group play, I would say. In group play, he does take a back seat a little bit just because his dependency on items is that high. But it's not enough to where I would, hindrance him or say that he falls back in the ranking. Now, I can do a multiplayer ranking for you guys if you want as well. Just let me know down below, and I'll definitely take care of that for you. Now also please, and I know I've said this a few times now, please keep in mind this is just strictly my opinion based on the hours that I've played on this game and the time that I've put in with my playgroup. This is just how I feel, what I've seen, and what I think is the strongest. If you disagree, that's fine. You can disagree, we can disagree, that's totally cool. And I'm totally okay with just talking and discussing that and kind of hearing what you guys have to say. I love discussing this game with you guys. I think this is an absolutely fun game, and I cannot wait until next month when we get new content, we get a new survivor. I'm really hoping it's the Bandit. And you better believe that I will be releasing more videos, updated tier lists, and all that stuff for you. So if you guys liked the video, please go ahead and hit the like button. It helps a ton. Go ahead and hit that sub button. It helps a ton. I appreciate every single one of you guys, and I hope you guys have a terrific, fantastic week and month.